Welcome to our next session for the IBMi training. Let me introduce myself firstly. I'm Keshav Mundara. I have approximately 1.5 year of experience in IBMi and working with programmers.io as well. In today's session, we will be covering the topics that were remaining from yesterday's CL session that are structure of CLLE source member, declaring variables, manipulating variables, and using out files and qtemp. Today's training will be given by Saurabh Kumar. Let me hand over the session to Saurabh. Uh, he can continue. So, Saurabh.
Thank you, Keshav. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next session. Myself, Saurav. I've been working with IBMi for the past 5 years, and I am part of PIO group for the past 2.5 years. So let's jump straight into the session. So today's session will be continuing from yesterday's. So let's see just a recap for yesterday. We started off with the introduction, what is a CL, um, and what is a CL language. It is just a series of commands that we put in a source and then execute that in order to achieve something. Then we looked at the use cases and limitations of CL. The use cases included we can call the program interactively or can submit in a batch job, or we can we use the CL as a main driver program, which in turn calls different programs, so that everything we have that proper structure of the flow of the programs. Then CL can also be used to monitor different messages and the limitations. It has limited printing capabilities. It doesn't support subfiles, and only limited files can be declared in a CL. Then we looked at the structure of a CL. Then discussed some of the CL commands, basic CL commands, and then we looked at the operations on the variables, how the numbers are manipulated, or the strings, how to concatenate the different strings. We looked at star cat, bcat, tcat, all that. So today we'll be looking in some more built-in functions that we use in CL, which we can draw a comparison in RPG and CL. The name is exactly the same. The functionality is also the same. We'll just go through those built-in functions. Then there are some logic commands like how to control the loops, do while, do until, if statements, how do we use those in CL. Then if else, then we have select and when. So that is also we'll be discussing today. And finally, we'll be looking at out files. What are those and how we can utilize them. Okay, so this was the structure that we discussed yesterday. Basic structure of a CL program. It starts with a PGM command, which is not mandatory, only required when you are passing in the parameters. It comes with the npgm command at the bottom. Then at the top, we have the declarations, whether DCL is used for variable declaration, DCLF is used for file declarations. Then if we want to include any copybooks, we do that on the next part. Then there are some processing commands, change var, delete file, retrieve system value, retrieve job attribute. We discussed some of these yesterday, and we'll be continuing today with these. Now, this is the main topic that we'll be covering today, logic control commands. All the looping and iterations, all that we'll be covering today. Then built-in functions also we are covering. And then this will be covered later, the program control commands and this. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so these are the basic built-in functions. So let me take you back to the RPG session that we had, in which we discussed the built-in functions. And this is a code that we used to drive that session, and we discussed all these. Just a quick refresher what we did here. We looked at the scan, we looked at substring. Scan is to find a position of a specific character inside a string. In this case, we were we were fetching the first name, the means whatever is there before the space symbol, space character, so that we fetched. So space here, then scan, it was the operation code that we used. This is the variable, and then this is the result in which we get that position, at which position space exists. So in this case we'll get that as 7. Then we looked at substring. Yesterday also we looked how this substring was used in the CL program. So we just put percentage sign SST and then the string on which you want to do the substring, the starting position, and the number of characters you want to pick. So the same is there in the RPG. This is the starting. This is the end position. This is the string. This is the starting position, and whatever the result comes, that is stored in fact in the result field. That is the substring. Okay. We had this xlate in RPG. Yesterday we discussed about percentage upper, percentage lower built-in functions. How do we convert? So xlate, we had to describe two different constants, one in all caps, one in lower caps, and then each character was translated to its counterpart in the other constant. Then we had this check, which was used to find the occurrence of this, the first occurrence. It gives you the first non-occurrence of this character. So if I'm looking into this string ABC are there. D is not. It doesn't encounter D here, so it will give you this position first, fifth position. Similarly, we have checkr also, which starts reading the string from the backwards. So now coming back to CL, we have this percentage char, percentage dec, percentage int. Now these three built-in functions are used to convert a number into a string, or a string into a decimal or integer value. Now, I told you yesterday that in RPG or CL, you can perform operations only on the same type of variables. You can add numbers only to numbers. You can add strings only to strings. Now, there are some cases where we want to, suppose we want to display a message with the current date. Now, date is a separate format in RPG. And if you want to build that message string, today's date is this, then you'll have to convert that into a string. So at that point of time, these typecasting built-in functions are used. A percentage char, percentage decimal, or percentage int. We can use these accordingly as per our need. If we want to convert a number into a character, we use percentage char. If we want to use a character as a decimal, we can use that as a percentage dec or percentage int. Then we have the length. Uh, this is just to find the length of the string. What is the total length of a string? Lower upper we discussed yesterday. Scan is to find a position of a specific character inside the string, as we discussed. It is the same as we discussed in RPG. Substring we already discussed yesterday. And then we have trim, triml, trimr. Trim trims out the spaces from the start and the end. Triml only trims the spaces from the left hand side, that is from the starting side, and trimr trims the spaces, the trailing spaces, from the right hand side. We'll see some of these examples in the code when we are discussing the other looping concepts. So these built-in functions will come there. So you'll be knowing that. Now let's get into the logic control commands. So how do we control the flow of the programs, or put in some logical statements inside the program? We'll be discussing if, then and else, do while, do until, do for, and then the select and select one. So starting with the if, So if I want to use a single if inside my program, I'll have to write it as if the condition that I want to check, then do. These will be a series of statements, conditions, statements that I want to run in case this particular logical statement is fulfilled. Only then these will be executed. And anything outside of this undo will be executed no matter the condition, whether it satisfies or not, it will be executed. How do we put else in here? So the if part will be the same. If the logical statement, we have to end that, and then we can use else. For else also we'll have to do and then undo. So this whole lot will be executed only when this condition is not fulfilled. And whatever outside of those undos, that will be processed no matter what the condition is. Okay. And one more, I'll get into this one. So this is a normal program structure. Starting with PGM, I have declared a file DCLF and a file, and then I have declared some variables. And this we haven't discussed yet, so I'll be coming on to this. And then is from this file, I'm reading all the records, and once I have read all the records, I'll just terminate the program. So I declared the file. I use receive file. Now this is new. This is a command that we use to read files in a CL program. Okay. In a CL program, I have declared only one file, and I'm using RCVF to read that file that I have declared. Okay. So reading generally happens starting from the top to the end. So the first record will come into memory at this point of time when I execute this receive file. This is same as that of a read operation in a RPG program. Okay. Then I have put in this condition mon message. So what I'm doing here is I am telling the system that if you encounter this specific message, this message is associated with receive file, and the other messages that are associated with this are uh, these. So if there is some, if the file is not found, you'll get 860. If you are receiving a display file, then it will tell and it is not, then you'll get this one. Like that you can get the list of all the error codes that are associated with the receive file. Similarly, all the CL commands have some error codes associated with them, which tells what was the error when you ran that command. So all I am doing is trapping that specific error 864, which tells me end of file detected for file. Okay. Now I'll come back to this later. Now I read the file using change var. These are the I read the file. These are the file fields. This is the file. These are the file fields: employee ID, name, address, salary, and department. Employee ID, name, address, and salary. Okay. So these are the fields of the physical file. Now what I'm doing is I have got that in memory using the receive file. I'm assigning these to a temporary variables that I have declared inside the program. W underscore field name. Okay. I have assigned it here. And then once I assigned all the variables from the file, I put a go to statement. So it tells that go to this command label loop. And how do I declare the command label? I just press F4. When I write receive file, I press F4, and here you'll get the label as a first field. Now here you can put as loop 1. So it will come by itself. And then I'm telling the program that go to. Now when program executes this particular line, it will look for this label inside the same program loop, and it will move the control to this loop. Okay, this is one of the ways in which we handle looping in a CL program. And this is used widely, means these CL programs are very old generally when we deal with the clients, and this is the most common looping that you'll encounter, and it will be using go-tos and the labels, so this will come handy in those cases. The other looping concepts will be exploring further in the session, but this is how the basic loop works. I'm reading the file, I'm trapping if that is the end of file. I'm When it is end of file, I'm telling it to go to end label. And if that end of file is encountered, the control will shift from this line to this line, and hence terminate the program. If not, if the end of file is not received, then it will move all the variables into the temporary variables. Then it will execute this statement. This statement tells to go again to the receive file or read, and then this continues until the end of file is received. Hope that makes sense. Okay. So in this program, what I'm doing is using this loop, I'm calculating in this variable WEMP I'm getting the salary of all the employees. So let's see how that works. I'll get this program in debug. Okay. I'll call the program. Just before that, I'll show you how many records are there in the file. Okay. So I have in total of 6 records in this employee PF file. Calling the program. The first statement is the receive file. It will pull sorry for that, I'll just compile it. Okay, so what happened there was I received a level check error. So what it says is when this after this program CL2 was compiled, there was some changes in the physical file with which this program was compiled. So I did some changes and I forgot to recompile this program, and that is why I received that error. Now that I have recompiled this again, I won't be receiving the level check error since it is being compiled based on the latest version of that physical file. Okay, so I have done the first read, and these all field file fields should be filled. So let's check those values. Again, all the variables in CL will start with a ampersand. I got 101, employee name. So the first record is in the memory. Now let's see what happens. In this program, what I'm doing is adding all the employee salaries. So let's see how do we do that using this loop and everything. So I got the first record. I'm putting the file fields into the temporary variables or the variables inside this program that I have declared. Now here, what I'm doing is at this point of time, this line is not executed yet. So the employee salary at this point is 0. What it will do is it will add that employee salary to the field that to the EMSL field, that is 1000, 0 plus 1000, and it will store that in EMPSL. The next time it comes, we have that 1000 value in this variable, and it will add the next one into that, then the next one, and finally at the end when we are exiting out of this loop, we'll have the total salary of all the employees in this variable. First record done. Now go to, it tells to go on to the label loop. Pressing F10 now, see it went to this. So it will just move until some exit condition is there. So we have put that exit condition here. So when a file end of file is received, we'll just go to the this label end. That is here after the go to. So let's see. First record, second record, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Now let's just verify that once. I have 234. So I'm on the sixth record right now. Now, when it again puts a receive file, then it gets that message CPF 084. And when it gets that message, it tells the program to go to the end label. And that is how, there is no statement over here. That is how we ended up at line 22. Okay. Now at this point of time, if I check this variable, 17,771. So which is a sum of all the records. So this is how basic looping works in a CL program. Okay. Now coming back to the if and else. So now if you are using a if, you'll put some condition, logical condition over here, then do whatever inside this do and undo, that will be executed if this is satisfied. If you want to put else, if it is not satisfied, whatever inside this do and undo, that will be executed, and whatever outside of these will be executed no matter the condition is satisfied or not. So let's see this in example. Okay, so this is also the same program. Only change that I have done here is same variables. Now what I'm doing is receiving the file, that is reading the file, putting the same check. If it is end of file, go to end. We have end. at the bottom. Okay. Now, this is the one that I just showed you in the presentation. So if employee ID is less than 105, then do and undo. So all these statements will be executed until uh, if this condition is satisfied. Now, if else works like this. If employee ID is less than 105, then do this, else do, else do, and all this block will be executed inside the do and the undo. Okay. One another way is, if I don't want to put this do, then the first statement after the if will be considered inside the if, and everything else will be considered outside of it. So let's see how this works. Okay. So reading the file, getting the first record in memory, moving the variables into temporary variables, ID, name, and address. Address variable at this point is Haryana. In the if condition, what I'm checking is if that is equals to UP, F10. Okay. So this is executed even if this condition is not satisfied. So better put means we should put this too. So let's see that. Employee ID at this point of time is 101, which is less than 105. Then all these statements will be executed. What I'm doing here is, this is also important. Uh, in a CL program, I cannot directly, means using the basic operation codes or built-in functions in a CL, I cannot update or insert new records into a physical file. So for that, I'll have to use SQL. And how do we run SQL in a CL program is by using run SQL command and then the SQL statement and the other parameters that are associated with that. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm building that SQL statement using the variables, using the CL variables. Now, this we discussed yesterday, how we concatenated how we concatenate the fields. Either we put double pipe symbol or we put star CAT, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm telling if the employee ID is one for the if the employee ID is less than 105, that is for 101 and 104, change the value of the department to HR. So this should be updated to HR for the first two records. Okay. But we are inside, currently we are only processing the first record. So let's see what happens here. If employee ID is less than 105, it is changing the department variable, which is currently blank, to HR. Changed. Then it is building this statement, SQL statement. Simple update operation, update file name, device EMPF, set field name, EMP department equals to what I want it to be is the this variable, that is the HR, where employee ID is the employee ID from here. Now in this table, in this physical file, the employee ID is a numeric with a 3 length, right? So in order to put that in a string, I had to convert that into a string. Only then it could be appended to the string. So this is where I use that character. As we told, the type casting built-in functions, the character, the int, the decimal. So this is how we convert a integer value into a character and then put that inside a string At this point of time, SQL statement is a string, and then I'll be executing that string from here. So let's see what comes out of this. So it tells update set equals to HR, where EMP ID equals to 101. I believe there some codes also need to be here, uh, since this is a string, and it might give some problem. Let's see. Yeah. So since there was no colon before and after HR, that is why this failed. So you can insert that by appending the colons also, the quotes also here. So for that, we'll first have to declare a variable of character 4, and the value you can assign to that is this. So with that, suppose this is a variable that I declared q, and then I can append that q before and after the department. In that way, I can use this SQL statement, and that would be updated into the file. Why we have to declare this separately is in AS400 in IBMi, all the strings are starting. We put all the strings inside the single quote, and since this SQL statement also accepts that, so see, this is the statement that I have built, and I'm telling the CL to run this statement. Okay, when I press enter, this is what I get. Since this is a string, I'll have to put that inside the quotes. Okay, and now the field is updated. Now, but when I'm building this string, the SQL statement string, how can I put quotes in after and before this HR? So in order to do that, I'll have to declare a separate constant or a variable to which I assign the value of that single quote, and then I append that to the string, and in that way I'll get the quotes around this HR. I hope that is clear now. And similarly, if it is not less than 105, uh, it will go into the else, and it will change the department to ACT, and then that ACT will be updated using the run SQL command into the physical file. I hope this is clear. Let's move on. We have this select in RPG also. So this is if you want to use multiple, this is like a case in C language. Starting with the select, uh, checks for this condition. If it's satisfied, then it runs this command. You can give any number of when inside the select, and if none of those is satisfied, none of those when conditions is satisfied, it will execute the otherwise, and at the end you put in the end select. So same thing here, starting with select when logic, some logical this is a variable, logical variable. If it is on only, then this will be executed. If it is off, it won't be executed. If that another variable is less than 0, then this will happen. If that is greater than 0, then this line will happen, do until up to and do, then otherwise. So basic structure to put in multiple conditions, consider it as a case that we have in uh, C language. Now coming to do while and do until. In RPG we have DOW and DOU. Here we put in whole do while and do until. And do while, it checks for this condition. Unless while this condition is fulfilled, it will keep on executing this set of statements, and at the end it will terminate. Do until, first it will execute the set of group of statements, and then it will check for the condition, and if it satisfies, it will run the next iteration and keep on doing that until this is not satisfied. Now for in do while and do until, we also have the leave command. So what it does is, inside, if it encounters leave, it will just come out of this do while. Similarly, we have the iter command. What it does is, if it encounters the iter, it will not process the rest of the statements inside that inside that loop, and it will execute the next iteration for that loop. So we discussed four things here: do while, do until, the same concept that we have throughout in other languages too. Do while checks for the condition first, then executes the statement. Do until processes the statements first. At the end, it checks for the condition and then executes it again. Leave, if it encounters leave inside the loop, it will just exit out of the loop, applicable to both of the cases. If it encounters iterate, then it will move to the next iteration rather than ending the loop. So these keywords come handy sometimes. Okay, now coming to out files. What are out files and how do we use those? So before that, in s- in AS400 we have many commands. In IBMi we have many commands which are only for display purposes. For example, if I want to see the fields of a physical file, display file field description. I given the file name, and file name is emppf. So if I scroll down, it gives me ID, name, all the fields, their lengths, what is the usage type, what is the column heading, everything for all the fields inside of that file. Display file field description. If I want to check the details at the file level, means what is the size and everything. So for that, the command is display file description. I'm pressing enter. So it tells you what is a file level identifier, what was the creation date, what is the text that is used with the file, and all the details. Access path, members, how many logical, how many members are there, how many records are there, what is the size, and then we have display database relationship. So it tells you if there are any dependent logicals based on this file. I have created two logicals based on that, and these are the details of those logicals. Okay, so these are some common commands in AS400, and CL, the command language, is can also use these commands, and we'll explore how do we use that. Then we have work active job also, and when I press enter, it tells you, it gives you the list of all the jobs that are running on the system at this point of time. Okay, all these users have logged in at this point. So now coming to how can we use this inside the CL. since this is a display, and if we are running a program, and suppose we are running in a batch in the background, and we do at that point of time s- we won't be having a front end for that. This, the screen that is coming, we won't be having that in a batch mode. So how do we utilize the this and create something through a program? Or if I want to check now, I have some dependent logicals on this physical file, and if I want to delete this physical file, I'll have to first delete all those logicals, since those are dependent on this physical file. Now, suppose at this point of time I only have two. Suppose there were thousands of logicals out of created based off this file. Then I'll have to first get a list of all the files, and I'll have to manually delete those files first, and then come back to this file and then delete this, right? So if I want to create a program, a CL program, which retrieves that list of the logical files and then deletes those inside the program itself one by one, then my work would be minimalized to a large. So at this point, the out files are come handy. So this is the DBR, and when you press F4, these are the options that you get. So star is you'll get the display. Star print is it will get into a spool and will be stored on the job log. Out file is you can get the output of this into a separate physical file, and then you can do operations on that physical file, and you can automate the process. Okay, so if I put out file over here, pressing enter, it will ask you what is a file that you want to receive the output in, and the library. So let's get the qtemp. Now we have this qtemp library associated with, whenever you log in, a qtemp library is created for you, and it is different for all the users that are using the system. So whenever you log in, even if you log in into different sessions, you'll have separate qtemps, and different jobs cannot access this qtemp. This is your private data holder or private library that third job cannot access. Okay, and when you sign out of the system, this will be deleted by itself, cleared by itself, and next time you log in, a new qtemp will be provided to you. So I'm telling the system to build me the database relations into, for this file emppf, into a q file, into in the library qtemp. I'm pressing enter now. So let's see what we got. Okay, so it is telling me that this was the file that I queried. There are two dependents, emp l1 l2, and this is the library in which these objects exist, and other details. Then I have display file description. Let's get that too. So for the file emppf, I'll the library is, let's get the output in out file. See this field. What attributes would you like to have in that file? I'm at this point I'm telling all, or if you want some, then you can get that. Pressing enter. I have to give the out file name q1 this time in qtemp. Let's check that. So it's a physical file. File attribute is pf. This is the description. Level check. Yes. Number of record formats is only one in that. And this is how you get the details. Okay. Now, why to get that in the out file? Now, when I'm writing, I'm trying to automate something. At that point of time, this comes handy. So, do is see. So, I ran the display file field description. Whatever file I haven't built file field. If I build this file field description by putting out file as qtemp q, so when this line is executed, I'll get all those fields inside this qtemp q. Okay, in this q file, and then I can write the logic to manipulate that or to send notifications to do all to automate that process. So this is the use of the out files inside a CL program. Okay. So that was it. Just quickly, let's quickly recap everything. We started off with the built-in functions. These built-in functions have the same logic that we have in RPG: the character, check, decimal, int, length, lower, upper. We discussed yesterday: scan, substring, trim. Then we have this logic control commands. If you just need to learn how to use if in a CL, just that you already know what is a if, what is a do while. So just how do we use that in the CL? We just discussed. Leave, iterate, go to, we discussed. Leave just gets out of the loop. Iterate goes to the next iteration, and go to directly to jump to some specific labels. Select and select, we discussed. This is a basic structure of a if. You'll have to put a do and undo segment, and inside that whatever you write will be run only if the condition is true. Similarly, you can put else also, which should be under inside the do and undo, and then you can run that, and whatever outside of it will run irrespective of the condition. Then we have select. This is used. This is like a case in a C language. You can run multiple statements. We have do until and do while, and finally we discussed about the out files and what is their use. They are helpful in automating or writing CL programs and getting the details for specific objects and then processing accordingly onto that. So that will be all.
Okay.
Should have received
Thank-
doubts.
no, Saurabh, we have not no questions any far till now. So thank you for such a great session, Saurabh. Thank you all the attendees for attending the session. So now we can wrap up the session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.